So, okay, so what the fuck? Let's talk about this movie. Saltburn was directed by Emerald Fennell. The Fennell, is it Fennell? It's probably Fennell. Fennell doesn't sound great. She is also the director of Promising Young Woman, a very controversial and highly polarizing film from 2020. A film that I completely understand why some people despise it. But here's the weird thing about that movie. Most people adore that film up until the end. I had a similar reaction to that movie the first time that I watched it. I have since come to truly adore that film, like in its entirety. I really do love it. And Saltburn, therefore, was one of my most anticipated movies in a very, very long time. It came out, and I didn't watch it. I don't know why that keeps happening. Like, my most anticipated movies tend to be the ones that I don't watch until way after they've been released. And it happened again with this one. I don't know what to say, but I just finished watching it literally like 20 minutes to 30 minutes ago. And honestly, it feels weird to try and sit down and do a review of this film so soon after watching it, because I am still processing whatever the fuck that was. The three main stars of this film are Barry Keoghan, Jacob Elordi, and Rosamund Pike. Three actors that I absolutely love. And it was really nice to see Jacob Elordi giving a performance with his natural accent. My thoughts on Jacob Elordi as an actor. As Nate Jacobs in Euphoria, I think he's perfect. Because the way that Nate Jacobs is written on the page, I think is perfect for an actor like Jacob Elordi. The other things that Jacob Elordi has been in, though, I kind of find him a little flat. Kissing Booth is a big one for me. Probably the most A-list actors in this movie are Rosamund Pike and Carey Mulligan. Let me just get this out of the way. The performances in this movie are fucking perfect. Like, across the board, everybody in this movie is absolutely amazing. This is my favorite Jacob Elordi performance, and I haven't seen much from Barry Keoghan, so at the moment, I kind of have to say that this is my favorite performance from him. Rosamund Pike is such an underappreciated actress, I feel like. Like, people recognize her as an incredible actress, but she's not typically talked about when people talk about the best actresses of our generation. I mean, not our generation, you know what, like the best actresses currently working in Hollywood. A lot of people never bring up Rosamund Pike, but she is an incredible actress. Like, in my opinion, she's never given a bad performance. If she's ever been in a bad movie, she is always amazing in it. Regardless of the quality of the film that surrounds her, she, isolated to herself, is incredible. I will say though, Allison Oliver in this movie, who plays a character named Venetia, it's Venetia. I know they said it several times in the movie, I'm forgetting how to pronounce it though. She was the standout for me, and she doesn't really have a major role in the film. Well, she has a major role for sure, but she doesn't have anywhere near as much screen time as most other characters in this movie. But her character is pretty essential to the story, at least I think she is. We're gonna get into the way that this story is structured in a moment. She had a scene in this movie that absolutely blew me away, and that I think is worthy of an Oscar nomination. She probably won't get nominated because she's not exactly the biggest star power of the film. She's not exactly a front runner in an Oscar campaign for this movie. If anybody from this movie is getting nominated, it's either Rosamund Pike or Barry Keoghan or Jacob Elordi. I know it just seems like I'm rambling, but guys, I'm still processing what I just watched. Now, here's what you're here for. My opinion on the movie. Is it a good movie? Is it a bad movie? Is it a bad movie that tried to be a good movie? Is it a good movie that tried to be a bad movie? Is it so bad that it's good? Does it try to be so good that it ends up bad? Is it mid? Is it one of the best movies I've ever seen, or is it one of the worst movies I've ever seen? I don't know. Honestly, maybe I really should have waited before I made this video. I do have somewhat solidified thoughts on this film. Do I think that Saltburn is a quality piece of cinema? Yes. This movie, for all accounts and purposes, is fucking incredible. On a technical level, this is one of the most gorgeous movies that I've ever watched. And I'm not somebody who really likes to throw out hyperbole most of the time in my videos, but genuinely, if we're just referring to those aspects of the movie, this film is fucking amazing. It's one of the most gorgeous looking movies that I have seen in a very, very long time. Definitely at least within the past 10 years. And I gotta be honest, Emerald Fennell directs the shit out of this movie. This is such a well-directed film. The way that every scene is composed and blocked is near perfection. It's pretty much flawless. Each scene has a very clear tone that it's going for and very obvious emotions that it wants you to feel. What every scene wants you to feel, with the exception of a few, and we will get to that later. But for the most part, what every scene wants you to feel, it does so successfully. And here's the thing, when you look this movie up on Google, it is classified in the genre category as a thriller/comedy. This is one of those movies that I don't think we should assign a genre because I don't think it fits into any one genre. I think the only reason some people may call it a thriller is just because of a tone that is presented to us within several scenes of the movie and absolutely the ending, which this is a spoiler-free video. I'm sorry, I know a lot of you who have seen it probably want to hear my thoughts on very specific things. I will try my best to describe my thoughts on those things without giving anything away because I want people who haven't seen the movie to also be able to enjoy this video. So I'm gonna try to keep my mouth shut while also being just sort of describing certain things very vaguely, but hopefully detailed enough so that people who have seen the movie know what I'm referencing. I personally wouldn't assign this movie a genre at all. It has everything. There is drama in here, there is romance in here, there's thriller in here, there is mystery in here. I would argue there's even some straight up horror movie aesthetics in here. And there's absolutely some comedy as well, which is why I think this movie is so polarizing, because this is a fairly controversial movie. I kind of feel weird labeling it a controversial movie because it's not really one that like mass audiences are having big debates about, but people familiar with it and in the film community who have seen it, people are still going nuts over this movie in good ways and bad ways. As I've already said, on a technical level, I think this movie is pretty much flawless. The performances across the board, fucking amazing, genuinely incredible, blew me away. And what I have to say about the film on a pacing level is that I was sucked in within the first 20 minutes, which I know seems like a big chunk of the movie, but for a lot of movies, it takes me at least until the end of the first act to be like, fully invested, like, oh, I am here, I am hooked, I want to see where this goes. For this movie, it did not take anywhere near that long. Within the first 10 to 15 minutes, I was absolutely riveted. One thing I will say, though, is that the first 2 acts of this movie feel like a completely different film than the final act, and that is absolutely intentional. There is a turn, I mean, there's many twists and turns throughout this movie, but there is a turn that happens right at the bridge of the gap between the end of the second act and the start of the third act that honestly was fucking incredible and made the movie so much better than I already thought it was. However, my big issue with this movie is the lead character. Now look, it's going to be very hard to give my thoughts on this without giving anything away, but like I said, people who have seen the movie will probably understand what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to say. The film does a very good job at establishing how you should feel about this lead character for a big portion of it. Then this lead character starts to do things and your feelings toward him kind of change. I'm not going to say if they go from bad to good or good to bad, but they do change. And it made for a very interesting watch. I was like, oh, this is a very unconventional writing structure. Like, this is interesting what they're doing with this character. I'm in. I am curious. You have my attention. Where is it going to go? Are you going to stick the landing? Here's the thing. On a thematic level, you know, thematically, narratively, dramatically speaking, they stuck the landing. 100%. I completely see what they were going for with this movie. I completely understand what they're saying with it. I got it. I know what they are going for. I'll say this. I can stomach a lot. Like, anyone who knows me knows that I like some pretty messed up cinema. I don't want to say I'm desensitized to a lot, but I can stomach a lot, like I just said. Like, I'm the type of person who enjoys watching a movie like Midsummer, for example, or Midsommar, however you say it. Like, a lot of people watch Midsummer and recognize that it is a technically very well-made movie, and it is like, objectively speaking, a quality film, like a quality piece of art. But there's hardly any people out there who ever want to rewatch Midsommar. There's hardly any people out there who actively enjoy and have fun watching Midsommar. I'm one of the weird fucked up people that does. I rewatch Midsommar quite often, actually. Now, a lot of this does have to do with the fact that I am a filmmaker. I do write. I study cinema formulas, and I study the way very outside the box directors make films, and Ari Aster, however it's supposed to be said, is definitely one of those filmmakers. I study his films a lot. I also rewatch Hereditary all the time. Still haven't seen Beau is Afraid. And Hereditary is another one. Hereditary and Midsommar, both really fucked up movies that I actively enjoy watching. The Witch is another one from Robert Eggers. The Lighthouse is also another one. I enjoy and have fun with the experiences of watching some really messed up movies. I enjoy watching The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Now, let me clarify some stuff, because I think some people might take away the wrong interpretation of what I'm saying. When I say I enjoy watching it, I mean that I am so exhilarated while I'm watching it, and while obviously there are things in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, there are things that occur that are awful and disgusting and abhorrent, and they make me feel gross, and I hate them. They are depicted and woven into the story in a way that still makes me enjoy the movie as a whole. I do not enjoy and have fun in some of those scenes. If you've seen Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, you absolutely know the one fucking scene that I'm talking about. But I think it serves the narrative so well, and it establishes your emotions so well, and it just gets you hooked and on board with those characters. I did not enjoy Saltburn. But as I've already said, I think that this is an incredible film. I think that this is a movie that people are going to be talking about for generations, and it might go down as a cult classic. But there were very few sequences in this movie where I was having fun watching it. That's not to say that it is not an entertaining movie. It absolutely is, in the sense that it keeps you hooked from pretty much the very beginning, and especially by the end of the first act, you're just totally in. And there's so many twists and turns, and it's one of the most unpredictable movies that I've honestly ever seen, so that definitely keeps you interested. Like, as you are watching this movie, it is impossible to look away. So in that sense, it is an enjoyable movie to watch, if a movie is enjoyable for you based on it being intriguing enough for you to want to keep watching. And can you tell how conflicted I am? Because describing that, like, that's also how I feel about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but I can go back and rewatch this movie. I don't know how many times I'm gonna rewatch Saltburn. I'm sure I will, absolutely. Like I said, I think it's a great movie, and I think it deserves your time. It deserves your time, it deserves your money, it deserves your support. Please support these filmmakers. They made something truly unique and outstanding and outside the box. But the third act of this movie in particular, there were moments, big moments, where I felt like I could tell that they wanted me to feel a certain way, and I just didn't. Not necessarily a bad thing. Or maybe they weren't trying to make me feel a certain way. I don't know. That's the thing. And I don't know if that should be a criticism with the movie, like if I should say, oh, it could have done a better job at, like, being a little bit more clearer about what we're supposed to be feeling. But honestly, I think that's the point. And the arc with our main character, Barry Cogan, who his character's name is Oliver, our arc with him is definitely a testament to that. It is meant to test your perception of people. It is definitely meant to make you consider that idea of first impressions being very wrong most of the time. And it definitely toys with your emotions and your moral compass a lot, which, looking back on it now, is honestly perfect for the way that the narrative progresses. I just realized I've been talking for so long, I haven't even given a synopsis of the movie. This movie is, on paper, about an Oxford college student named Oliver who is lonely, doesn't really have any friends, and he meets this one guy played by Jacob Elordi named Felix. And Oliver suffers a loss in his family, and he's in a really bad place, and so Felix invites him to come and stay with him and his family at their bangin' ass rich estate for a summer that, quote, is never to be forgotten. And boy, oh boy, am I never going to be forgetting this movie anytime soon. Or anytime within the rest of my life. I feel like I'm coming off very condescending in this video. This is a great movie. This is, for all accounts and purposes, a great movie. As I've already said, I feel like I'm being a little repetitive. It's just so wild. And here's the thing. That is all I was hearing about this movie for the longest time. All I saw anyone ever saying about this movie was that, Oh, it's so wild. Wild is the main word, the main buzzword that has been thrown around about this movie in pretty much every review of it that I have seen. People are just like, oh, this movie's wild, man. This movie's crazy. This is so off the wall. This movie's bonkers. It's off its rocker, dude. Like, you need to watch this movie. It's so crazy. It's insane. And usually, when there's hype like that around a film, I usually end up being disappointed because I get so excited. I'm like, oh my god, I love movies that are just so relentless and just so like out there, not afraid to go to certain places. And this movie certainly does. I think this is one of the rare exceptions where I'm not disappointed because of that hype. I think that this movie, for the most part, lives up to that hype. It is wild. And that's my other criticism with this movie, actually. A lot of the shock value of it does work, in my opinion. But there are certain things that happen where I'm just like, it kind of feels like you got lost in yourself a little bit. It sort of feels like the movie gets lost in its own journey, which again, I'm sure is the point. But just my experience as a viewer and as a writer and a director and an actor watching this movie, there were certain things that happened where I'm just like, okay, this is another aspect of the shock value, but I don't know if that needed to like, I don't know if you needed to do that. Like, I get it. You're trying to be super fucked up. You're trying to be super disturbing. And there's a lot of movies that get that accusation that I actively defend. This is one of the movies that I struggle to defend in that regard. Even though, as I said, 95% of the time, I think it completely works. But there's really just one moment in particular that I'm thinking of that lasts for quite a bit of screen time, and I was just like, okay, I get it. I get why this character would do this, but guys, I'm so conflicted. Like, I want to say, but I don't want to see that. But at the same time, like, because I'm sitting here being like, I don't know if that's necessary. But here's the thing. Movies aren't necessary in general, and keep in mind, I am saying this as like the most passionate film person you'll probably ever meet. I'm at a loss for words. I genuinely am. And you know what? Maybe that is a testament to how genuinely incredible the movie is. As I've already said, I think it's an incredible film. It certainly has a very dark sense of humor, which is right up my alley, and I quite enjoyed those aspects of it. The production design and the lighting and the sets and the costumes and the music, God, like everything is so well done. The only thing I'm conflicted about really is just the narrative, and even like 80 to 85% of the narrative I fucking adore, and I adore the structure of it, and I adore how it progresses. As I said, this is a very unconventionally written film, and I think it succeeds on most fronts. And with further thought and maybe a rewatch, I think I will come to adore 95 to 100% of the narrative and the way it's written and the way it progresses. It's just a movie that toys with your mind and your emotions and your feelings about certain characters so much, and it made me feel horrible. Like, here's the thing. When I'm done watching a movie like Midsommar or Hereditary or Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I'm left feeling exhilarated. I'm left feeling like, God, that movie was so fucking good, and I love movies, and I love making movies, and just movies, film, theater, acting, directing, writing, yes, 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 I love it. This movie, while it's stellar in all of those categories, just made me feel awful. Like, I was happy when this movie ended. I was overjoyed when it ended. And again, that's not a dig at the movie. I'm just saying my emotional experience with it. It was crushing. It was confusing. It was maddening. The movie makes you feel like you're losing your mind. Like, it is so trippy, and especially the arc of the main character and his journey is just so unexpected. There is definitely a certain point in the movie long before the ending where you start to kind of see where you think it's gonna go overall, like conceptually speaking, but as far as predicting specific events and specific things that certain characters are gonna do, no, it completely unpredictable in that regard. I think that this is a superbly directed, acted, written, staged, composed film. I think that this movie is incredible. I hesitate to call it a masterpiece. And here's the thing. A lot of people who know me were probably expecting me to call this movie a masterpiece. I don't quite want to go there. Do I think that the movie is worthy of that title? Sure. Like, I wouldn't necessarily be in disagreement with someone who says, yeah, Saltburn is a masterpiece. I just don't know if I'm ready to say that. I think I need to sit with this movie more, but I have enough solidified thoughts on it to really just give you my general opinion, which I feel like I've already done several times. This is a great movie. You should watch it. You should support it. And most of all, form your own opinion. Don't go and watch a bunch of reviews that spoil the movie. Don't go and watch a bunch of, hyperbolic opinion pieces on it. Just sit down and watch it for yourself and just experience it. Don't even watch a trailer. Don't read a log line. Just sit down and just let the movie take you on its ride. This is one of those movies that's best to watch knowing as little as possible, and I would hope that most people experience this movie under those conditions. I do want to say, Archie Madek, or Archie Madekwe, I don't know how to say his name. He played Farley. Incredible performance. I've already said that all the performances across the board are amazing, but I did want to give him a specific shout out. I would say him and Alison Oliver are the two best performances in this film. It's a truly shocking movie. It's out there. It's crazy. There are things that happen in this movie, and there are images that are forever burned into my mind. See what I did there? But seriously, they are forever ingrained into my brain, and I will never... there are things shown in this movie that I will never be able to unsee. When you kind of sit down and think about the fact that, okay, somebody sat down and thought of that and wrote it on paper, said, yes, I want this in the film, I like this. Then it went across about a million other desks, all of who were sitting at those desks, said, yes, we like that too, we're gonna put that in the movie. Then these people had to think about how they were going to capture certain things on film. And then they did it. And all credit to these actors, they are fearless. Barry Keoghan in particular, completely fearless in this movie with some of the stuff that he does for the role. I commend you, sir, for that greatly. As an actor, I don't know if I could ever bring myself to do the things that you did. I think the score is absolutely beautiful. This is a beautiful composition, and it actually does have a lot to do with the very meandering tone of this movie, because it goes in every possible direction that you could imagine. I feel like there aren't even words in the English language to fully accurately describe how certain scenes made me feel. I was so uncomfortable during certain moments. I was so happy, which is kind of weird during certain moments. I was, indescribably shocked during other moments. I mean, it truly is all over the place. And some might use that as a criticism and use it to call the movie messy and call it just completely all over the place. Disorganized, sloppy, poorly written. I personally do not feel that way. I think I see what they were going for, and I love it. I think that I love the way, I'm probably gonna have to make an update video when I fully had time to sit with this movie, fully process it, and maybe give it a rewatch and maybe watch some other people's opinions on it. But I truly do think that I'm pretty confident that I understand what they were going for. And for what they were going for, I think they executed it about as well as they could have, honestly. This is such an ambiguous review. As I've already said a million times, I think it's a great movie. I do think it is incredible. I did not enjoy watching most of it, but as a filmmaker, just as a creative in general, I have to sit back and acknowledge that it's a great movie. I did mention that it was one of my most anticipated movies in a long time. So from that lens, am I disappointed? Honestly, no. Going into this movie, I was just I just want this to be so out of left field. And I want to be taken on a roller coaster of emotions, and I want this movie to just royally mess me up. And in those respects, the movie succeeded. So no, this was not a disappointment at all. But honestly, this is why I've stopped giving ratings to movies on this channel, because what would I give this movie? Because I can't only consider the technical mastery of it. I also have to consider just my own personal experience with the movie and just how it made me feel and how it made me feel about the film itself. It's a big part of the reason why I've stopped giving scores to movies. It really tapped into my anxiety. I was very on edge during the vast majority of this movie. Didn't know what was gonna happen. Completely unpredictable. I had butterflies in my stomach pretty much the entire time. It is a very tense and suspenseful film in that way. And strangely enough, I do think it's a film that every kind of viewer can find something to appreciate in. Even if you hate the movie, I guarantee there's still going to be an aspect of it where you're gonna be like, that was great though. That was really, really great. That was well done. I liked that. And I think a lot of that is because of the fact that this movie is literally every fucking genre. Like every genre in existence. No exaggeration here. I know I said I didn't like hyperbole earlier in this video. I don't think I'm over exaggerating. I do not think this is a case of hyperbole. Every genre known to man. I mean, sure, maybe there's certain subgenres like, I don't know, sci-fi or slashers that this movie obviously isn't. But when it comes to just like every thematic genre, this movie hits every single one. And they weave in and out of each other. They occur simultaneously in certain portions of the film. It is a miracle of a script. Like, it is insane that this was written and produced, and honestly, that makes me feel really good about the future of movies. Strangely enough, despite how conflicted I am on this movie, I want more movies like this. Movies that just do not care what people are going to think about them. This movie really doesn't. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about your feelings. It respects you as an audience member. It doesn't over-explain shit to you. It just presents you with its wickedly twisted narrative and lets you decide for yourself how you should feel. I don't think it really tries to force any emotions on you. I think that the film is very, very respectful in the sense that it just presents itself to you and respects you enough to allow you to feel about it how you want to feel. Narratively speaking, about things that happen within the fictional narrative of the film and certain decisions that characters make. And I do think that the ending of this film is one of the best I've seen in a very, very long time. I genuinely think it's masterful. Here's the thing. The estimated production budget for this movie is anywhere from 10 to 38 million. So it's between low budget and mid budget range. A lot of movies like this and the types of studios that usually make movies like this, studios like A24 for instance, this movie would have gotten $1 million and it would have been an indie darling. But for the purposes of the point that I'm making, this is a somewhat bigger budget movie produced by a massive studio in Amazon Studios, and it has insane star power. One of the most famous, like some of the most famous actors of our current generation, and it is so weird and so messed up and completely relentless and unforgiving, and for that I will always adore the fact that this movie exists and is watchable by anyone who wishes to give it their time. I genuinely think we need more movies like this in order to save cinema. I have seen so many opinion pieces over the past few years of people saying that cinema is dead. Good movies don't exist anymore. There's so little good cinema out there now. Movies just suck now. That's not fucking true. I think the way that we perceive cinema is deeply skewed, and I do think a lot of that, ironically enough, is because of streaming services, social media, and the fact that anyone can say anything about any movie at any given time. It sort of reminds me of that bit in Bo Burnham's Inside where he is just like, can any one person shut the fuck up about any one thing for any amount of time? Can any one singular individual person shut the fuck up about any one thing for any stretch of time for an hour? No. What is my point? I don't know, guys. I need to sleep. I need a nap. I need a shower. I need to wash this movie off of myself, and I need to sleep on it, and I need to talk to someone about it. That's what I need to do. Now, this is a review, so I have to conclude it properly. Saltburn, written and directed by Emerald Fennell, starring Barry Keoghan, Jacob Elordi, and Rosamund Pike, mainly. A good movie that is worthy of your time. It is very well made. The cinematography is incredible. This movie, on every technical level, every artistic level, is, for all accounts and purposes, masterful. One of the best endings that I've seen in a very, very long time. A deeply intriguing narrative with a very investing mystery and a tone that makes it impossible to look away from the film while it's on. It intentionally toys with your mind and your emotions to the benefit of the effectiveness of the narrative. It is purposely polarizing and outside the box, and it definitely swings for the fences, and for that, I think it's a movie that should absolutely be hailed, praised, and commended, discussed, and remembered for decades to come. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts on Saltburn. Let me know what you guys thought about it down below in the comments. I'm very, very curious to hear your thoughts because there's no telling how you're gonna feel about this movie. It's just one of those movies that you just have to experience, and every living person who watches it is probably going to have a somewhat different opinion. Anyway, yeah, that I watched it. I can now say that I've watched it. I'm gonna end this video and take a nice, long, warm shower and take my ass to bed. Thank you guys so much as always for watching. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Zaybeast, which is my personal account, or my professional account for my independent production company, Headspace Productions, at Headspace Productions on Instagram. Also, be sure to check out my podcast, the Headspace Podcast, mainly available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but is also available on pretty much any podcast streaming platform, Samsung Podcasts, Amazon Music, you name it, I got it. Yeah, I don't think I have really any other plugs. Thank you guys so much as always for watching. I will see you in the next video. And until then, keep writing, keep shooting, and keep editing.